one of the things that our present prime minister, did when we were doing the campaign is that he recognized that in previous years, women were marginalized when it comes to key government jobs. So one of the main things that he campaigned on is inclusion of women, and not inclusion of women on a small scale. When he won the election, the first thing that he did was appoint our first female governor general. So our head of state is a woman, Marcella Liebert, and in his cabinet he has included 4 key members of parliament. The Speaker of the National Assembly is a lady, and her deputy is a lady as well. The national security, head of national security in our country as well is a woman. So he has changed the perspective in terms of inclusion of women in key positions. So when I saw the case study, I felt excited because I recognize that our country has already included this perspective and has already moved when it comes to the UN aspect of it. I'm new, as I said, I'm new. So what are they? What are the things called? The UN?
SDGs?
Yes, the SDGs. Yeah, he has already made a move when it comes to implementing some of the SDGs. So I just wanted to share my country's move when it comes to that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. It's always great to hear stories about positive change that are happening.
And also welcome. We hope to see you at many future programs. Yes. Wonderful. Who else?
I can share one from the chat quickly too. So we have Odette from South Africa. And Odette said, I agree that as women try to push forward, they are forced multiple steps backwards. I find the top-down approach valuable. In my country, there are many issues with women, but those issues are reduced when men in power help to voice these issues. Their support, however, was triggered by the outcry of multiple women. I think both the bottom-up and top-down would work better if used in combination, which is something that we will be talking about after the break. So stay tuned for how we can combine these.
Fantastic. Anyone else want to give us their thoughts? Oh, great. Big group.
Can jump in. I think that a reflection that we try to share at all level is that it's important how to change the narrative politically in order to achieve the same result, because sometimes I was giving an example for my home country, Italy. We have for the first time a president, for the first time female, but the wording on like women rights and all this kind of thing, the narrative is very left. So also we have like cases, be the president, it's gender neutral, but for us it's not. So she uses the masculine article just because it was used to call the president with the male name. But she's progressing because she's the first woman and she's doing things for women, but she doesn't want to say these things as the left party is saying. So one thing that is important is to, in order to go to the same approach, to really understand how to change the political narrative. And this was something that we noticed. And again, it can be difficult if there are issues that are very sensitive for the population in terms of religion. So another example, we have a minister that is very conservative because of Catholic religion, and she's really challenging the abortion law. And this is a main issue in a democratic context. Whereas, and I maybe can give the floor, in other cases where there's no democracy and there's a leader that decides, if you have the sensitivities, you go boom and you obtain whatever you want. So maybe I will leave the floor to you that are aggressive on those things.
Yeah, we generally talked about different, the importance of political tides and public opinion to achieve, effective policy. Because in some parts of the world, we've discussed that a lot of the time, policy in favor of gender equality and women empowerment will come relative to just, you know, political gains that leaders will benefit from if they're put in power and have this opportunity. We also discussed again the impact of religion and how that impacts the role of women in society, and finally the use of quotas as an effective policy, but rather for the long-term goal as a medium-term policy to have it in place, which can and has in certain parts of the world like showed some significant progress in terms of, you know, women representation in parliaments. But the bigger question is then, do they actually get to higher office, head of ministries, which again is relevant to the leader in place. So, you know, for this as well, we attributed a lot of the political gains, and for some leaders, you know, just a endorsed principle position where you can tell that education really played a role in, you know, shaping their belief that women have their place in this room and should be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. And thank you for including a number of perspectives there. You're absolutely right that there can be all sorts of things that intersect with the cause of women. Right here, you raised the example of a first female president who is right-leaning in her beliefs and party, right? And so figuring out what is a way to advance women that doesn't, I guess from her perspective, she's worried about aligning with the left, right, in the country. So that can be very thorny. And also then once again, thinking about the ways that religion can intersect and make things more challenging, right, for women to be able to speak on the ground. Fantastic. Caitlin, any others from the chat that you wanted to read or?
Sure. So we talked a little bit about sort of government for support for educational programs in the chat. People were bringing up the importance of education, specifically education of girls too. My apologies for the pronunciation, but Bayuje Alghani said that the reassurance and action to fulfill the education of women would significantly increase the quality of education and human resources of the nation itself.
Yeah.
And Indonesia itself has a predicament in its education where a large percentage of the population has only completed a primary education. And by providing scholarships for women and fulfilling elementary and secondary education for free, these are ways that we could help support the development of women in the country.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you to our online commenters. And I think this goes back to something that the second member of our group there, the colleague, said that, you know, a lot of times, sadly, people only advance the cause of women if it means a political win for them. And fortunately, countries that meaningfully include women in leadership and in power tend to have more robust GDPs, right? And so it's unfortunate that we have to, you know, resort sometimes to an argument saying it actually benefits you to include us. But it is no accident, right, that when women are elevated, that countries prosper. When women are elevated at the peacemaking table, going back to what Christina said at the very beginning, that peace agreements are more meaningful, inclusive, and they stick. They stick for longer. So it's a compelling case. I'm wondering whether we've reached the point where we should take a short break. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. It's 11:34. We're going to give you all 10 minutes for a bio break and for some coffee. We'll come back at 11:44 and talk about a robust method for creating change and how we might apply this to the gender inclusivity context. All right, so feel free to get your coffee and we'll see you back at 11:44.